everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio. Today I'm sharing with you some stencil rubbing that I did. I'm doing the 100 Days of StencilGirl, and I also needed some muted tone papers to use for some challenges over at Art Joy of Sharing. And so I decided to mess around with some vellum paper and some rice paper, which I made into small pieces to do this technique. I also have some acrylic inks and water and brushes. And all I'm doing is trying to mix a few colors that are more toned down. Like, for instance, this bright yellow green, if you mix it with a little bit of violet, it grays it out a little bit. And then I added some white into it to make it a lighter color. And I am just taking water on my brush, mixing it in the paint there, in the acrylic ink, and then just putting it on these vellum pieces. I grabbed out some, okay, so I've got two different types of things. I've got things that are marked acrylic ink, and then I also have this golden high flow paint, which is, of course, a highly pigmented paint because it's from golden, but it's fluid. It's so to me, it's very much the same as an acrylic ink. I'm not really sure why it's not called that, but it isn't. So I use them the same, and I'm just trying to get watery, smushy color onto these pieces of vellum and rice paper, which I haven't started rice paper yet. These three pieces of vellum, it was fun because the vellum didn't appear to be very absorbent. And I have a little tablet. It's like 4x6 of them, and I'll probably use them some more. They're thin paper that I can use for collage and, you know, kind of translucent. But what's interesting about them is that they're not absorbent. Whereas with this rice paper that I'm using now, it's a lot more absorbent. So when I smush around the color with my wet brush and you know, try to mush it around there, it absorbs into the paper very quickly and makes marks. Whereas on the vellum, I could push it around a lot more. So although they seem the same when you're thinking about the feeling of them, although the vellum is more stiff, but as far as density and as far as translucency and also, you know, just how they look on the video, they look the same, right? You wouldn't be able to look at that and say, oh, that's rice paper, that's vellum. But the properties of them are very different. So as you can see, I'm getting out my little color wheel every once in a while just to make sure that I'm mixing and neutralizing my colors properly, because I don't have them memorized. This is a gray, and I was having trouble getting it out, but I was using it in this one instead of black to make a tone. When you mix complementary colors together, you neutralize the color and make a gray or a brown. When you want to make it darker, you usually mix in black, and when you want to make it lighter, which is called a tint, some people would say those are pastel colors, you mix in the white. So you can either mix titanium white, which is opaque, and makes the color more opaque, or there is a mixing white, which is a translucent white that you can mix in, and then the color remains more see-through, more translucent. But this is what we're doing all month in Art Joy of Sharing over on Facebook. That's our art community, and we invite everyone to come and join and play with us in our monthly themes and monthly challenges. The monthly theme is hashtag muted tones, and it's just really all about playing with color, figuring out color theory a little bit, and maybe mixing your own colors to make your palette a little bit more unique than it would be by just using the colors that are pre-mixed. So that's what we're doing. It's fun all month. And so I needed some collage papers because, you know, my palette, if you guys have been following me for a long time, you know my palette is very bright. I like to use really bright colors. And so muted tones is not really something that I do all that often. So I don't have a lot of collage paper that's those type of things other than neutrals and black and white. I've got a lot of that, you know, off-white and black and white and gray. I've got that type of paper, but I don't have colors that have been intentionally neutralized. So that's what I'm kind of making. today while I'm doing my stencil rubbing. Also, of course, I need more things to post to show that I'm doing the 100 days of Stencil Girl. So now the next thing I'm doing after they're dry is I'm taking some of these 6x6 stencils. I put the stencil underneath the paper, and then I'm using uh, oil pastels, you know, Craypaws, those really cheap crayons that are kind of greasy and oily. You could also use a regular kid's crayon to do this, something waxy, something hard. And then I'm pressing down onto the paper over the stencil and getting the stencil pattern onto my paper that way. Rubbings, I've been familiar with that for a long time. I remember my aunt came back from the Holy Land, and she had brought these big rubbings that she made of carvings. And I know people like to do that. Maybe go out and bother some ancient stones that have petroglyphs or ancient writing on them. And you can take a thin piece of paper and a crayon and rub, and you'll get, you can make a copy of that type of thing. And that's, I think, where this concept came from of doing the stencil rubbing. So I'm trying all different types of colors. I'm not, if you use white or black or something dark or really light, it makes the most dramatic impact. But you can use any color of your oil pastels to do this. And it just, picks up the stencil pattern. So I'm on to my next stencil. The first one had a really dense pattern. I think it's called Zen Squares or something like that. And it had, everything was really close together. And then when you get the stencils that have things further apart or more gaps, you get a different look. This one, I cannot remember what the name of it is, but you can see I get a lot more gaps in the pattern, and it looks a little bit different with the rubbing. So this is my underpaper that got wet and had a little bit of color on it, but I didn't put any color onto it. That's deli paper. So that's another thin type of paper that you can use. When I went to Ireland and Scotland a couple years ago in the summer, I went to a museum that was all about Vikings, and you could make a rubbing of your name in runic language, in runic writing. We did that, I remember. You took the little runic tiles and you put them in order of spelling out your name, and then you could take a rubbing with their paper there. It was probably an activity for kids, but we did it anyway because it was fun. So somewhere in this house I have rubbings of my name in runic writing, which I would never be able to remember, what it looked like or how which one of the runes are the ones that would spell my name at this point. No idea. So then I was out of paper, and so I went ahead and got out some different inks. This one that's this below the blue, there's like a really nice bright blue, but then there's this other one called Antelope Brown. And it's a weird color. It's a Dale Rowney color, and it's brown, but it's also green. And if you mix it with blue, it makes olive, and it's a really interesting neutral. I've seen some other people use it, and I never thought I would want that color because, it kind of reminds me of baby doo-doo. Lots of times when babies eat baby food, that's what the color comes out. But it's actually a very interesting neutral, and it mixes with a lot of things. So I did pick up a bottle of it at the Hobby Lobby, and decided I would play a little bit with it. And it's really good with this blue color because you can mix the two of them together and make kind of an olive green, and then you can also, they just go really well together. But I think it's one of those colors like quinacridone nicolazo gold that just goes with everything. It's one of those type of colors, and I was watching Tracy Verdugo, however you say her last name, a video of her, and she was using that color on her canvases and dripping it down, and then she put it with some other colors, and I thought, that actually is a really good neutral. So I picked it up. Still kind of looks like baby doo-doo. So I've switched stencils again, And this one I know is called Shape Shifter, which I think is a funny, funny name for this stencil. But you can move it around and it has like almost mask-like edges, so there's a lot of options on it. I think that's why it's called that. And it again has much larger spaces. So you could actually do some stencil layering with this one, but in the 100 Days of StencilGirl, I'm trying to just use one stencil, feature one stencil each day rather than mixing. Other people are doing it different than that. There's people who are just making gel prints with stencils and maybe they mix them all up, or maybe they're doing painty papers and using a lot of different stencils on them. For me, it's just one stencil a day. So that's Shape Shifter stencil. Those turned out good. I liked them. Interesting. This one, again, I can't remember the name. I will put the links to the stencil designs that I used in the box below, the Show More box below. If you're curious about them or you want to go over to StencilGirl products and get some of these patterns. This one has a lot of triangles on it, and it's got positive and negative shapes. It's not just like a bunch of triangles. It's got some that are positive and some that are negative, which I think makes it interesting. Cannot remember the name of it or who designed it, but I thought this rusty crayon looked pretty good over the top of this one, which has that antelope brown and some of the turquoise on it. So I thought that was a good combination. Now here's another piece of deli paper that was just in my stash of underpapers, and I put the rest of that paint on there, the blue and the antelope brown colors, to make more. It was like junk paper, you know. Maybe a week ago, or I don't know, a while ago, I was showing that I use that underpaper that I get dirty, has marks and different paints and stuff on it. Then I just take it and use it to make painty paper. So that's what I was doing. In this case, I had a bunch of that ink on my palette, and I just wanted to use it up. So I just used a brush and put it on here. And it made some interesting paper. I actually should have saved some of that paper without putting pattern on it, because like right there on the edge on the right hand side, and then that one, the left hand side of that other one, is interesting in its by itself without putting stencil pattern on it. But I wasn't paying that much attention. So I did do more stencil rubbing over the top of it. So yeah, 100 Days of StencilGirl. That's my 100 days project for this month. I mean, for this year. Last year I made 100 abstract mixed media collages on all different types of things last year. Couldn't commit to that this year. It's a lot of work. So another stencil. Again, I cannot remember right now what the name of it is. To me, it looks like tires. Like if there was a pile of tires. Sometimes you might see that like in a junkyard or whatever. That's what it looks like to me. I'm not sure that's what it's supposed to be, but that's what it looks like. So I hope you've enjoyed this technique video and you'll try some stencil rubbing, maybe over some painty paper that you created yourself, maybe over just some of your junky paper that you have. And if you do, I'd love to see what you do. Please post it over in Art Joy of Sharing. Join the group. Answer the questions when you ask to join the group. And then do our challenges. I have a new hashtag in my head. It's called quit lurking, start working. Hashtag quit lurking, start working, because we have a lot of people in our group which like to look at the art that other people post but don't ever post anything themselves. So if that's you, hashtag quit lurking, start working. We want to see what you're doing. Post, please. No one is judgmental in Art Joy of Sharing. So if you like this, please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We reached 21,000 subscribers not that long ago, and over 2 million views on my channel, which is crazy. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.